If you are not yet familiar with the works of Cartoon Saloon, you really got to get on that. Their latest, My Father's Dragon. Cartoon Saloon, I discovered way back with Secret of Kells when that got an Oscar nomination completely out of nowhere. It was a movie I never heard of. I saw a trailer and went, that looks really good. And it was. And they've done great work since then. Song of the Sea, Wolf Walkers was fantastic. And now this one. This is on Netflix. And I will say it's interesting tone-wise. I'd say it's one of the more sort of geared towards a younger audience. I think with stuff like while pretty much all of their stuff have featured younger protagonists, they haven't necessarily been kids movies, or at least not completely. I think that My Father's Dragon is the closest to a more traditional kid story in terms of the overall tone and where it's going. It has that more here's a little fantasy journey that this young character goes on, but there is still some more stuff in there, and the way in which he relates to the dragon that he meets, a dragon who is young and inexperienced and a little bit goofy, and the frustrations at times that this young boy has with this dragon, very deliberately, has some mirroring to the frustrations his mother is having with her life in general, and yes, sometimes with him. Not because he's a bad kid, but because life is hard, and sometimes it makes even the people you care about difficult to deal with under certain circumstances. So it is still doing that sort of stuff, but the overall thing is much more sort of bright and colorful across the board. It does still have weight. It does still have a good sense of urgency to a lot of it. It still has some dark moments, but I'd say this is the closest to a more traditional children's film that they've done. But it's a lot of fun. It's a trip. This one. It is a bit of a roller coaster journey. The way it goes up, it goes down, because it is one of those stories that starts with the lead character in a very realistic setting and actually stays there for a bit, but then sends them off to the fantastical setting where it's bright and colorful, and the already stylized artwork gets even more stylized, especially with a lot of the talking animals that are on the island. And the dragon just warms my heart so much. He is such a sweetheart. He's an absolute marshmallow. It is wonderful. Just his joy, and he wants to help, and it's just terrific. And seeing the relationship build, see it strain, and it doesn't have so structurally, one could argue that this kind of falls into the pattern of, you close bonding, second act, something makes them, break apart, then they come together at the end. Yes, it follows that structure, but it justifies it a lot better than a lot of films, especially kids films, do. A lot of kids films feel like they do that because it's the expectation. I mean, it's pretty often that there's some kind of if there's a group or even a pair of characters in the leads, that there's some kind of mandatory second act. Oh, I don't like you anymore, and they split off kind of thing. And it can often feel really forced. Like whatever the reason was feels like that shouldn't be a reason for you people to like abandon each other. You're just doing it because like somewhere on a whiteboard somebody wrote darkest hour moment. And this is what it almost always is in a kid's aimed media. Here, though, it makes way, way, way more sense. And it feels like rather than being there because it's the template, it's there because it's the natural progression of the ways in which this relationship is paralleling this young boy's relationship with his mother. And understanding that parallel makes a breakdown in communication or a frustration or a point at which, the way in which they just kind of go like, I can't right now. It makes a lot more sense, and it feels like a natural extension of the narrative. So it's one of those things where like sometimes something fits a template or a formula, not because it's formulaic, but because it's telling a story that actually works best with those beats. It's the difference between having a story that you want to tell and doing what is best for the story, and then in the end looking back and go, oh, that turned out to be a fairly conventional structure, versus building the structure first and going, okay, we're going to have this beat, this beat, this beat, this beat, and end on that beat, and then building a story around that. There's a difference. You can feel it. It's an intangible thing. You can feel the difference between a story that fell into the structure it's in because that's what will help tell this story best, and a story that was built just to be the structure. Like it's just, that's all it was ever intended to be. So one following on from the other, which way that goes matters. And you can tell, and this does it the way I want to see it done. I'm kind of dwelling on this because like this isn't one where like there's all that much for me to talk. Like the animation's gorgeous, the voice acting's good, the child actors are wonderfully believable, the characters are endearing, the themes are well handled. Like it's good. It's Cartoon Saloon. Of course it's good. So I'm kind of going off on a tangent on the idea of, you know, the structural nature of stories, especially children's stories, because it's not very often that you get something that feels this way. Again, especially aimed at children's, because children's media can be exceptionally formulaic. But there really, truly is a difference between telling a story where the formula is what will make it work and starting with a formula and then plugging in a story to fit it. And you can still get entertaining things out of the latter, but there's just a different feel to it. And it's worth bringing up because, you know, as someone who engages in actual writing and trying to tell stories every now and then, it's not the end of the world if what you've created fits a fairly traditional structure. Maybe that's what it needed. It's just a matter of how did it end up that way is the question sometimes. Because being non-formulaic doesn't automatically make things better. So fitting a formula doesn't automatically make something lesser. This fits a pretty standard formula, and I do not care. My Father's Dragon. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon is what pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living. Oh, it's worth mentioning, I watched this one with my kiddo too. She quite enjoyed it. You know, anything that you want to contribute to the Patreon that will help me continue to feed that child greatly helps. But even if you can't, like, share, subscribe, also help me out. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here so you can come on back next time you need a break. End of the video, so I got to shout out my top patrons. Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfulla, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Angus Bjarnason, Melinda Walters, Imudelki, The Oath of Boyd, Katoria, Toy Lowly, Becky Sparks, Fernambulax the Poodle, Zach, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Tim Price, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, and Brendan LaRose. Thanks for your support. If you want to hear me probably mispronounce your name as well, check out the rewards on the Patreon. How you doing there?